Today on the news and why it matters, Ilhan Omar did not marry her brother. Definitely did not marry her brother. Oh, or did she? And also calls for Kavanaugh's impeachment and the buried lead of that entire story. Got a lot coming up. You don't want to miss it. Starts right now. Welcome to the news and why it matters. I am Sara Gonzales, today joined by Stu Burguiere,
Yes.
Mr. Stu Burguiere.
Yes, it is my last show before vacation.
That's what I was going to say. You're leaving us after today. Just randomly dipping out after
Going out.
Tuesday.
I'm not. They're not excused absences. I'm just going on vacation.
Okay.
I'm not going to lie to you and say I have a sore throat.
They are very
I'm
unexcused.
just leaving.
We're not happy about it. Okay. And we've got conservative commentator Grant Stinchfield. Thank you so much for being with us
Great
again.
to be here,
It's
as
always
always.
a pleasure. And Aaron Colin from theblaze.com, my favorite reporter.
Well, thank you.
Oh, I just said that out loud.
He's
Sorry,
there now.
everyone
He's out there
else.
now.
You're,
Sorry, guys.
you're sort of middle of the pack for me.
Well, I'm working on it.
Got a lot to get into. First, we want to thank our sponsor, American Financing, who I always like to say is smart enough not to do business with Stu.
They have it's their new slogan, apparently. Yes, no,
Really taking off, I hear.
you know
Getting
what?
them all the business.
I will be doing business with American Financing at some point. No,
That's
wait.
them right now. Call
Wait a
them.
minute.
Wow.
Hello,
right
American
on, right on
Financing?
target. I mean, just a live show. It's,
That's my vacation alarm. I'm sorry, I gotta go.
no.
That's it.
He's out.
But seriously, American Financing, if you've got a refi, a home loan, whatever the case may be, American Financing is your go-to. They've got salary-based professionals. They're not commission-based, which is kind of a big deal when it's just the biggest investment you're ever going to make in your life. And you've got some other people who are commission-based who are just like, what's going to get me the biggest kickback from the bank? That's what I want to do. Yeah, you don't want that. You want to go to American Financing. They're going to walk you through every single step of the way. They're never going to make you feel stupid, right? Can I?
Yes, they will not make you feel stupid, like if you set your alarm in the middle of a live TV show. They won't,
Even
they
if
won't
you
make
are
you feel
stupid,
like that.
they won't make
Right.
you feel stupid. You can go to AmericanFinancing.net or you can call 800-906-2440. Stu, before we start, do you need to call anyone back? Are you good?
I'm going to keep this on, and when you say something wrong, I'm going to buzz you.
I don't
That's my new,
that.
it's a new
I don't
policy
like
for
that.
today's show.
So Ilhan Omar, I know Glenn did a chalkboard on this whole Ilhan Omar marriage thing because, you know, for someone who claims to be a Muslim, she's real lax on this whole relationship marriage thing.
Really following the rules all that much, I've noticed. You know, I would encourage people to go to YouTube, maybe after this particular program, and check out.
Yeah, don't go right now.
Yeah.
Finish watching our show now.
I know I tweeted it today. I think the Blaze tweeted it. Glenn tweeted it. It's the Ilhan Omar special we did about a month ago or so. And if you go to YouTube and search Glenn Beck Ilhan Omar special, it'll come up. And it's about an hour, and it goes through this entire thing. What's interesting about it is so freaking complicated that like you have to watch it in a visual. It has to be visual. You have to see it on the chalkboard and see all the relationships. Because I know, even following it on radio while I'm sitting in the room watching Glenn tell it, I think it's really difficult. And that's the only thing I think assisting Ilhan Omar in this.
Yes.
You know, it's helping her kind of avoid it because it's such a weird story. And this is one of those things where, like, the news, I don't understand at all. Like, I have no idea. She did have this tweet where she mentioned, and this is from 2013, I think Caleb Hall found this, and she says, "Happy Father's Day to my, that thing, Noor Saeed. I am forever grateful, grateful to Allah for giving me the best father." And then it gets cut off. And so what happens here, she posts this on Instagram, and it cross-posts to Twitter. She had already deleted the Instagram post. She's covered her tracks multiple times on this situation. So the news is incredibly confusing. The why it matters, though, is pretty serious here because, number one, it does appear that she's committed multiple crimes. Obviously, we have a justice system that should be sorting these things out and a media to chase after it.
Well, let me just interject for a second. So this is the man that she named in this tweet would be the man that would connect her to marrying her brother, which is what Glenn's chalkboard was about.
Yes.
Okay.
fully confident.
So
in that.
if I have it right, the man she named in the tweet, who she said is the father, her husband had the same name as
Correct.
the father.
Correct. Well,
So-
her second, the other husband.
Yeah, so it's like to oversimplify things, because I was a radio guy for a long time. We love to oversimplify things.
Yes.
It's an oversimplify.
Please do that.
It was a husband. Doesn't matter whether it's the first one or the second one. You're
Right,
marrying your
right.
brother, for crying out loud, right?
Yes.
So you've got that connection, but then there's another a deal where apparently she lied under oath that she didn't know the names of any of her family members and that she didn't know any of this was connected, where clearly then years later she has a tweet saying the name of her family members, which all leads to say she's covering something up.
Yeah, and we know there's tax fraud. There's all sorts of problems related to this. And the number one piece of evidence as to why it's bad is every single time someone finds one of these, she immediately deletes them. Why on earth is she deleting that? It's an innocuous post about her father. It means that it shouldn't scare anybody, but to her it does, because she knows she's covering. I mean, she's blatantly covering something at this point, and at some point maybe we get to the bottom of it. What's important here is obviously there's a legal, reason why we should know what's going on here. But more than that, like, this is politically, I think, important because she is a prime example. She's in the squad. She's one of the most famous people in America all of a sudden. And if this embarrassment occurs and she winds up, her career sort of blowing up and going down in flames, this is a real hit on the Justice Democrats. And that's why I think this is important. The Democrats, the normal average Democrats, are getting all these socialists coming in and running under this Justice Democrats banner. And it's the Justice Democrats banner to vet these candidates. And if they let someone into office and now has been elevated to this huge high level and did not vet them enough to know really what their name was, is really what we're talking about. Not to mention that she committed multiple crimes potentially. This could really hurt that group in their standing among the Democrats. And that's a good thing for the country because these are socialist candidates we're talking about.
So not that it matters to most Democratic voters, but it goes to credibility as well. So here she is, and she's talking about all of these things that she believes in, yet the one word I use for almost every Democrat out there is hypocrite. And this proves again that she is one giant, monstrous hypocrite. So everything she says and everything the news media props up as her saying is truth, you better take it as a grain of salt, because she's proven that, one, she lies, two, she says things that whether she believes in them or not usually turn out to be false, and three, she married her brother.
Allegedly.
I mean, do we think her constituents care? I mean, this is something that you wonder, is it going to matter when re-election comes up? Or if they do care, is there going to be an alternative for them to vote for? Is there any political penalty for her to keep this secrecy up? Because it seems like she's just willing to just not say anything, delete a few tweets. She's being covered by the media because they're not really digging into this. And so what is the downside for her? It doesn't seem like she's being punished for being secretive. It doesn't feel like she's being punished for all this smoke that looks like something's going on.
Yeah.
It's amazing. I mean, can you imagine if you take some Republican and they were tweeting about a friend in the oil business a few years ago, it would be on the front page of the New York Times. Can you imagine if Roy Moore had a tweet about how hot that 14-year-old looked over there at the mall? None of these things would be overlooked. Like, this is a scandal that's been ongoing for a long time. A new one comes out and the media does nothing about it. And I will say, like, the only real media source that's been able to jump into this at all was the Minneapolis Star-Tribune. And what's fascinating...
A right-wing, an alt-right conspiracy theory newspaper.
And to be fair, they actually have asked real questions about this. But amazingly, unlike every other situation in modern politics, for some reason, she's not required to answer them. They just kind of say, we asked her and she didn't answer. And it's like, well, what does that mean? Why don't you have a reporter staked out in front of her house every single day until she answers you? I hope eventually we get there. As these things add up, we will get closer, I hope. Hopefully conservative media can fuel this a little bit as well, but it's been limited so far.
To Aaron's point, I think her Uber supporters are not going to really care about this, but I think we have to worry about that huge group that is somewhere in the middle. They're uninformed voters, or they're watching the news unfold, and they don't know how. This takes away credibility from what the news media props up as the people that you should be believing. So that group of people, I think, will start to question, as more and more of this stuff comes out, will start to question the credibility of Ilhan Omar and her whole crew.
I just wonder if the awareness is there. Do people on a wide scale know about this in the details? Because it is a confusing and complicated story.
Yeah.
It's not really getting out there.
I've heard it 20 times. I still don't understand it.
Well, right. And as you said, that is to her credit. I think that if she doesn't go down for this, that will be the reason, right? Is that because the American public is like, we don't have the time to spend trying to figure out the flow chart of how all of her relationships work.
I think that's at least part of it. I think the media protection is a big part of it as well. I mean, but the thing here is like, if Ilhan Omar, if this really does blow up and the media looks into it and they find out this is a real scandal here, and let's say she steps down, there's going to be another terrible Democrat that replaces her in that district. It's not a story about that. It's a story about, I mean, here's a person who has become one of the 3 or 4 faces of the Democratic Party, and this is the ultimate gift from the gods to the Republicans. To making them the face of this party should be the only goal of Republicans right now. Show everybody that, you know what, the choice is between, if it's Donald Trump or Republican senator or whoever, versus the squad. The other team is the squad. That's who they are. Do you want the squad? The more they can make that point and really like show that they are one and the same, it's only to their benefit.
All right, back in a minute. Before we get back into the conversation, we want to thank our sponsor, Relief Factor, which we all love because it makes Glenn tolerable-ish, I guess. He was in a lot of pain, right?
He was.
And as we know, when you're in a lot of pain, you're not like really well, like even-tempered all the time.
Yeah, he was miserable and a disaster. And it really was a long-term thing with him. And he started taking Relief Factor really at the behest of his wife. Who he acts like he doesn't listen to, but does all the time.
Hold on. That's because we're always right. I would just like to point that out. Continue.
And but she was in this case at least. No, Tanya's very smart, much smarter than Glenn, and told him to take Relief Factor. He did, and after a couple of weeks, really started feeling a difference. And he's been taking it every day now for almost 2 years.
Yeah.
And it's really decreased the pain that he has on a daily basis.
He was in a lot more pain than I am. I was in a lot of pain as well from a car accident, but it's done wonders for me. And I am, you know, I tried pharmaceutical drugs, I tried acupuncture, I tried massage, I tried everything else. Relief Factor is working for so many of us here at BlazeTV. If you are just one of millions of Americans, you live in constant pain, don't do that. Don't do that. Instead, try Relief Factor, see if it works for you. It's 100% drug-free, in case any of you are conservative hippies like me. And you can get the 3-week Quick Start Pack right now for $19.95. 70% of the people who try it go on to keep ordering more. It's working for that many people. It can work for you. It's worth a shot. You can go to relieffactor.com, get that 3-week Quick Start Pack, or you can call 800-500-8384. So more revelations from the New York Times smear campaign against Brett Kavanaugh. We discussed it yesterday that, you know, they ran this hit piece on him and then had to correct it with an editor's note saying, oh, oops, by the way, not only did this alleged victim decline to be interviewed, they also do not recall this incident ever happening. Kind of a major detail, I would think. We find out later that the editors actually, it was not the writers who made this mistake. The writers actually included it in their draft that they sent to the editors. The editors actually were the ones, they say, who took out the minor detail of, oh, by the way, this alleged victim does not recall this ever happening, which you would think that you would recall a penis being thrust into your hands. But hey, who am I to say? But
can't answer that for you. No comment. I cannot answer that for you.
Just talking about the effect that this is having on the left-wing media, on Democrat lawmakers who are now calling for this poor man's impeachment. Once again, this guy cannot catch a break. I want to get into, Stu, I know that you and Glenn talked with John Ziegler on radio this morning, and I want to get into that. But first I want to play, Kamala Harris was interviewed by NPR. And she, you know, she tweeted that he should be impeached. She sat through these hearings. He's a liar. She sat through all the lies. We should impeach him. Here is a little bit more of what she had to say to NPR this morning.
Both the male classmate who made this allegation against Kavanaugh and the alleged victim declined interviews with the media. The alleged victim reportedly told her friends she does not remember this incident with Kavanaugh happening. Now, you're a former prosecutor. Are you not troubled by a lack of evidence here?
Well, I would say that the fact that someone does not remember the details of an incident doesn't mean that there's lack of evidence if there are other witnesses who can establish that the fact occurred. And so I wouldn't say there's no evidence. And it is also, I must say, very normal for someone, especially someone who has been the subject of this kind of behavior, to not be, to not be clear on the details. That's not abnormal.
It's worth noting, though, that the witness has not established that this, in fact, occurred. He was a male classmate of this woman. He says it happened, but no one has proved that it's happened. Does that trouble you?
But you're getting to exactly the point. Someone should investigate this. Because the fact that something has not been proven, it doesn't mean it didn't occur, right?
So
that is wow.
It's an airtight legal argument.
Listen.
Oh, yeah.
Kamala Harris murdered my friend. I don't have any witnesses.
Okay.
There's no corroboration.
Investigate this.
Thank you. And in the meantime, she needs to resign.
We need a full hearing.
Absolutely. Look, just because you don't remember the details of it, I mean,
doesn't mean it didn't happen.
Can I just say this? I never thought I would applaud NPR for giving the New York Times a lesson on how to question somebody. NPR actually just asked legitimate questions of Kamala Harris. I'm flabbergasted that they did.
It's a weird world.
But I'm grateful they did, and her answers were so bad. She's a prosecutor. She ought to be ashamed of herself. And the left ought to be ashamed of themselves of what they're doing to Brett Kavanaugh, and the New York Times ought to be ashamed of itself of what it does to journalism.
Amen. Yeah. She of all people should know.
I know. I mean, look, it's embarrassing, right? The idea that she comes out and says, "Hey, it's just because she doesn't know the details." She doesn't know. It's not the details she doesn't know. It's anything about this event. It's if the event occurred or not. That's not a detail.
Which, by the way, I also went to college, and I can just kind of tell you, as the female at the table, a penis gets thrust into my hands. That's not something that I just forget the details.
No,
take your word for it.
That's the thing. I mean, it doesn't. I didn't do it on a daily basis.
Good.
Okay.
Good to hear.
So it's not like a normalized thing for me. Definitely something I'm going to remember.
Would you remember if that happened to you?
Honestly, it happened 3 times last week. I think.
I think I might block it out. I might not remember it.
HR.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really terrible argument, and they're latching onto this. There's no way that Kamala Harris believes what she's saying there. And that's the problem. Like, she's just going for an advantage. There has to be someone who actually knows a crime occurred for the crime to occur. And if there's no victim of it, I mean, look, there are exceptions to that, right? Like someone passed out. That is an exception to that. There are exceptions, and that's kind of the fallback position now. It's like, well, she was drunk. She might not have remembered. Look, you remembered that. You're not. It's very rare that someone gets that drunk and they're still walking around.
Yeah. Well, and catching penises in their hands.
Apparently, that's
what's so frightening about this is the fact that you can have one allegation from all the way back when you were in college designed to take down a Supreme Court justice. If you think they'll do it to a Supreme Court justice, don't think they won't do it to the coworker in the cubicle next to you. Don't think they won't do it to your sister or your brother or your wife.
Kavanaugh at least has powerful people defending him. I mean, the average person has nothing.
This is crazy. Allegations spew throughout the media with no basis of fact whatsoever. We go back to the original allegations. I'd make the same claim that there was no basis of fact, and we're holding hearings on it, all because they hate what Kavanaugh stands for, they hate what President Trump stands for, and they hate conservatism in general. And because they refuse to play by the rules, they'll just cheat. And that's what this is.
The idea that people running for president, after hearing that there's no basis for this allegation, would still just go for it and say, you know what, impeach him, get him out of office. I mean, there's no shame involved in that to be able to do that with a straight face. And Kamala Harris knows better. She knows what she's saying is not a legal standard, but she's being a politician, and so she's just going for sound bites. She's going to be, I'm going for women, get Kavanaugh out of there, abortion rights, whatever the case may be, and it's going to work for her. She's desperate, she's falling in her campaign, and that's just the tactic she's going to use.
Yeah. So the lone accuser at this point, right? Max Stier, who is the one who said, I was at this party and I saw Brett Kavanaugh's friends push his penis into this woman's hand, which actually wouldn't.
Now in this break, you've said it 4 times.
Which actually wouldn't be Brett Kavanaugh's fault. It would be his friend's fault, right? So Max Stier, who is he, Stu?
The record is 6, by the way. I just want to make sure. Max Stier, people and conservatives have pointed this out, which is, look, Clinton supporter, was a Clinton underling, right? And that's important. But take it a little bit deeper here. Think about what this guy was. He was an attorney under Bill Clinton's defense. He was working for Bill Clinton's defense during the Paula Jones trial, okay? So Paula Jones is accusing the president of exposing himself to Paula Jones. That is like a big part of this allegation. At the same time, on the other side, an underling for in the Ken Starr, under Ken Starr, is Brett Kavanaugh. So this guy, we're supposed to believe that this guy is in the middle of a case against against Kavanaugh on the other side of the case, and he's in the middle of defending his guy about supposedly exposing himself to women. The whole time he knows, because he saw Kavanaugh at a party do this exact thing and never brings it up to anyone. That entire time they're litigating a guy exposing himself in an unwanted fashion, and he just never brings it up to anyone the entire time until now. Like, it is such an implausible allegation that no one should possibly believe it. And the problem here is, all of the politicians, the AOCs, the Kamalas, all the candidates are all out there immediately taking it as fact before they even know whether the person has said there's an allegation or not. Just based on one article, let's run with it. And they run with it to as hard as they can, as fast as they can, because they are incentivized to get there first.
Imagine if that standard was applied to Ilhan Omar and those allegations. I mean, the double standard there is so clear.
There is way more evidence on the Ilhan Omar thing than anything that Kavanaugh has been accused of.
Well, meanwhile, buried in that entire story, in this same book that the New York Times is getting this disgusting article from, it says that Leland Keyser, you remember Christine Blasey Ford's childhood friend, Christine Blasey Ford, the one who went in front of Congress, testified in front of Congress that these things happened, even though she couldn't remember all of the details. She was really sure that they happened. Her childhood friend actually said she did not believe that this testimony passed the sniff test, and admitted that she was pressured by Ford's allies and by Ford to change her story and to stop saying that she did not recall it happening. That doesn't get covered.
No.
Nothing. No coverage of that particular incident.
At least by the Times. I did see it, I think, in maybe the
CBS
Washington
News
Post.
I
Okay.
saw CBS News was the only one.
You know what, it was CBS.
Yeah,
right.
today, this morning, that I saw that had said anything about that.
At least somebody, but still, it's unacceptable how little coverage is done.
So when the latest allegation comes out, I get torn about even talking about it, right? Because we really are falling right into the trap of, well, let's just get everybody talking about it. But then I always come back to the fact that if we don't talk about it, and not a plug for the Blaze, but if the Blaze isn't talking about it, nobody's going to give the other side of the story. And so I feel like we have to be compelled to explain to the masses who don't understand what's going on, this is all false and they're lies. You have to talk about it. But boy, there is a part of them that is so happy that we're discussing this right now and that we're taking up time for much more important issues.
Yeah. Aaron, last word.
Yeah, I mean, they're talking about they want to investigate it more. They need more investigations. How much investigations were there when the confirmation hearing was going on?
Exactly.
I mean, did they not go in depth enough? Why,
Exactly.
if they didn't, why didn't they do it? So there's some responsibility there on the Democrats as well.
Yeah. All right, back in a minute. And it's like, oh, this makes Deborah Ramirez's account. Don't forget, you would just listen to this Omar controversy. It got really complicated. You need a flow chart. Okay, well, as Stu mentioned earlier in the show, you can find a flow chart. You can find it on YouTube, on Glenn Beck YouTube. You can also find it on BlazeTV, which I highly recommend that you go to, because not only can you find the Ilhan Omar chalkboard special, you can also find the News and Why It Matters Overtime. You can find Steven Crowder. You can find Eric Bolling. You can find Graham Allen, Chad Prather. We got all the big names under one tent. You can find it all there, and you can save $10 on your annual subscription if you use promo code NEWS. As I said, overtime is coming up next. We've got the big breaking story. You guys, you're not going to want to miss this. President Trump accused of stealing pancakes.
How does this not make the A block? I mean, what are we doing here?
President Trump accused of stealing pancakes. We've got an exclusive look at it from Stu Burguiere coming up next.